Hi, my name is Kate McMahon, and thanks so much for joining me today for the gallery show. I'm very excited to introduce you to Sarah Thornington. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you.
Sarah is our artist for the month of October, and actually she's a conservation artist, which is very cool. We're going to talk about some of your pieces in a bit. But can you give us a little idea of how you started creating this art and any art prior to this?
Yeah, so, I've always been a creative person. I've always made all sorts of different little bits of art or whatever. But coming up on, I think, 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, I decided to do a beach cleanup every day for a year, which is kind of a crazy undertaking, but and I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do with it. I was going to document the entire thing on Instagram, and that was pretty much my goal. And then at the end of the year, I was going to look at my stuff and figure out what I was going to do. And I'd set myself a goal of 3 pieces of plastic per day. I was like, that's pretty good. Anybody could do that. Mm-hmm. And that's a little under 1,900 pieces of plastic for the year. And at the end of 9 days, I'd already picked up that much plastic. And
in 9 days?
9 days. 9 days. It was the winter, which helps the winter,
yeah.
With the storms and things. And so I kept kind of moving my goal up, and I moved it up to pretty quickly, 10,000 pieces. And at the end, I ended up picking up almost 22,000 pieces of plastic over the course of the year.
That number's phenomenal.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So even though my whole entire plan was to wait until, a year was up, at about the 2-week mark, I had all of this ghost gear, abandoned, lost rope and things. And I just started weaving bowls because I was like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? So I taught myself to weave bowls. And then I found a little Wolverine figurine who I didn't actually know was Wolverine. I had to bring him home and say, who is this? And Wolverine ended up being my first little mosaic. And then it just kind of blossomed from there, and within, I think about 6 months, somebody invited me to have a show that was a show about climate change at the Coeur July. It was brand new at the time, and so even though I thought I was gonna wait, it just sort of happened, and I sort of became, I originally started calling myself a marine debris artist because I was only working with marine debris, and then that kind of turned into conservation artist or artivist because I'm, trying to just make people think about, what we're doing to our planet.
Mm-hmm. And you do it so beautifully as well. Very beautifully.
Thank you.
So, do you have anybody in your life that has helped you influence your art, or any influences in general?
So as far as people, I grew up going to museums, and so, there are probably a million different artists that I have been inspired by over the years, but I am most inspired by our planet. I find so much wonder in this world. I am really annoying to go on hikes with because I love to hike, but I also will sit and look at the mushrooms growing, and I'll look underneath the leaves, and I'll, pick up things and stop and take a million photographs. And I really do. I just think this planet is so cool, and I think the creatures on it are so amazing. And so that really is what inspires me. I just want people to stop and look and go, oh, she's right. The planet is really cool. We should take better care of it,
That's a great approach. It's a positive approach as well, including your art.
I didn't ever want my Instagram to be, here's a big pile of trash that I picked up today. Here's another big pile of trash. And some people do have Instagram accounts like that, and they're super powerful, so it's not like that's not a good thing. But for me, I wanted it to sort of portray who I am as a person as well, which is I really am a fairly positive human being. I don't want to be like, we're all done. There's nothing we can do, although sometimes I feel like that. But so like my Instagram account, I would try to put like quippy, quirky little sayings sometimes, or,
Yeah.
if something cracks me up, I'm like, this cracked me up, so.
Well, which is great. Shows your personality there too. So what about the mediums? We've talked about what you've picked up on the beaches. Is there anything else that you use?
Yeah, so at the beginning, I would only use plastic that I picked up. And of course, I pick up other stuff other than plastic, but that just gets, trashed or whatever. And I do recycle what I can, but most of the stuff that you find on the beaches is not really recyclable. But so at the beginning, I was like, it can only be my plastic. And then I realized that that was really dumb, because there are things like Center for Coastal Studies, Beach Brigade, where they're out there all the time, excuse me. And sometimes I'm out there with them, but a lot of times I'm not, And so Laura Ludwig, who's the in charge of the marine debris program down there, is wonderful, because she lets artists come and pick and choose and, take things that they can use, which is wonderful, because she knows that, again, it's just kind of all about awareness or whatever. So there's that. I just finished a mural at Nauset Middle School with the Sunburst STEAM program this summer, and it's a bottle cap mural. And so it's made with some of the stuff that I found on the beach and other people found on the beach, but it's also with bottle caps that have been collected by the community. Places like Green Road Refill and other artists they collect bottle caps and plastic from just the community at large, because of course we all know that, recycling's not actually the answer. And so if things can be repurposed. So there's that. And then things like, I have a piece that's all the 5 sea turtles that we get here on the Cape. And my husband was remodeling my in-laws' house, and he was redoing their kitchen. And there was this piece of wood, and it turned out it was the front of a cabinet, that you put the doors on. And I was like, that's beautiful. Can I have it? And he was like, what do you want it for? I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea what I want it for, but it's so beautiful. And then when I finished all my turtles, and I was like, gosh, what am I going to put these on? And I was like, that cabinet door would be just a perfect frame. And so I painted on it, all kinds of different facts and things about sea turtles, each of the different species. And then I ended up with one long, thin bit that didn't fit a sea turtle, so I put some seagrass in there, because also important for the sea turtles or whatever. Yeah. And then things like I have a photography studio in Hyannis, and it's been a photography studio since the 50s. So we have all of these great frames, and frames in a photography studio that are they're just for display, or they have a hard life, and they get thrown in things, right? They get thrown in the closet. So they're all dinged, and some of them are dreadfully out of date. And how would you even get a round photo, an oval photo? I don't even know. But so they're perfect for my art. And sometimes I spray paint them, and sometimes I just, leave them as is. And all a lot of my mosaics I do on wood, because it's easier as a base for hanging or whatever. And so I just use scraps of wood that, my spouse when he's doing a project and he has bits of wood, I always ask him, or people will bring me things. For a few years, I had a couple of different exhibits at Atlantic White Shark Conservancy.
Yes.
And after that, the director of education came up to me, and she's like, we got rid of this old screen door at our house. She's like, and I thought if anybody would want it, it would be you. I was like, oh, really? I could have that? Oh my gosh, So I haven't done anything with my screen door yet, but someday.
But you will.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely.
I'm sure you will. You're just so creative.
So, yeah. Which is where the conservation part of the art comes in, because I try not to buy new things other than, a little paint sometimes, and a photograph in the background, and glue, and rivets and screws and things. But
right, it's good for you. So can we go ahead and talk about? Let's start with these 2 pieces.
Sure. So every year I kind of have a theme for my work, and this year I kind of was going towards the endangered species, particularly the endangered species that we get here on the Cape. And this little guy is he's a eastern spadefoot toad. And I had never actually even heard of an eastern spadefoot toad, but it turns out that the Cape is one of their main breeding places in Massachusetts. And they're like this big. They spend most of their life underground, and they come up when it's time to mate, and they come up in like very specific when there's been plenty of rain and the the tidal pools, the vernal pools are coming out. And when it's all perfect, they come out in droves and make all little new baby toads, and then they pop themselves back into the mud. So it's really no wonder that none of us have ever heard of them. But they are countrywide, they're not on the endangered species list, but they are on the Massachusetts endangered species list. So as soon as I heard about that, I was like, I want to talk about the eastern spadefoot toad.
Of course.
People need to hear about him,
Yeah.
So this is not the piping plover from this series. She was one of my first mosaics. But I have a piping plover that I made who's a little bit bigger, who will be here on display. And I have an Atlantic right whale, North Atlantic right whale, that I made out of a piece of construction material that was found during a big cleanup, and somebody else had found it, and and I see this big, huge black piece of plastic, and I'm like, anybody want that? And everybody's like, why? What are you going to do with that? I'm like, wouldn't it make such a good whale? So that's those. They're part of. I think our whole world has so many challenges across the board, and it's not just plastics in our ocean or debris. We have all these creatures that are dependent on us to take care of it, as well as so many other issues. But
Right.
Right.
It's just wonderful art. And with these exhibits, I'm sure you're doing it even just as secondarily. People are learning a lot from this.
That's my main goal, is I just want people to think about what they're doing. I want people to talk about it with other people. It's that whole ripples of kindness. It's also ripples of awareness, and we just need to be better stewards of this planet, because eastern spadefoot toads, piping plovers, North Atlantic right whales.
Right. And there's no planet B.
Absolutely.
No planet B.
There is not. So, exactly. We need to take care of it.
Yes, and we do. I couldn't agree with you more. So you had also mentioned a tennis ball?
Yeah, so I say things like, oh my gosh, I love that I found this, or oh my gosh, I was so excited when I found something.
Yeah.
Which sounds awful, because of course I'm never happy to find crap on the beach, let's be honest. But one of the things that I love, and this is what I say, I don't actually love it, but one of the things that I love is how when I find things, like the tennis balls, for example. So I find tennis balls in every sort of level of degradation, from like perfect tennis ball, might have just been popped right out of the can, all the way to like gnarly nub black. Like the first time I found it, I wasn't even certain it was the inside of a tennis ball, because you don't really see the inside of a tennis,
unless you have a dog.
Yeah, true. But even still, then they're still kind of gray and clean. They get it. But that's the name of my tennis ball piece is Tennis Anyone, and I also often say it could also be, dogs that aren't very good at playing catch, or playing, don't fetch very well or whatever. But so I love, it's kind of like a Victorian naturalist collection. Like you can see what the ocean does, and it's fascinating to me. I have a bunch. I have one with shotgun wads, which are the bit that pushes out the shotgun shell.
And it's plastic, long and plastic.
Yes. Used to be made out of cork, but sadly now made out of plastic. But again, like as they come out, and I have a photograph of those that are go from like, it almost looks like it's brand new to like so splayed out it's sort of like a sea star, and everything in between. So I'm always fascinated by those sorts of series, or I have some that are like color series. So they're like a lot of the same objects in different colors.
Different colors.
Like for example, I found a nautilus shell. It's like this big, sand toy.
Yeah.
And I just found, so I have every color. I needed purple. And last week I was so excited again. It was not really that excited, but I was also that excited that I found like the edge of a purple one. I was like, oh my gosh, I found my purple nautilus shell. I'm so excited. And I pulled it out and it's literally half blue, half purple. It's like, I don't even know what happened. It's kind of, I don't even know what happened. I'm like, well, I guess I found my indigo, my indigo nautilus shell. So I'm still searching for a purple one. But, I like finding things like that. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by the idea of the tennis balls, because that's so powerful because it tells a story.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I probably find tennis balls almost every time I'm out there, but it's, the power of the ocean is amazing. I mean, on the Cape, we don't get, further down Cape, we do a little bit more, but even still, it's a pretty mellow coastline that we have, and that it's still, things are still being degraded like that. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, very much so. So this has been so fun learning more about your art. It's wonderful stuff. I'm a huge fan.
I do, thank you.
And is there anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, I think that there are a few things we can do for this planet that are very important. I think one of the important things we can do is to vote for the planet every chance we get. But I think that really, honestly, one of the most important things we can do, if not the most important thing, is kind of how I started, is to find wonder in the world. Because if you go out there and you appreciate the just absolute crazy beauty we are surrounded by, especially on Cape Cod, you just protect what you love. You really do. And so I think, that we need to be better at seeing what's around us, and we need to buy less. We need to, if you go to the beach and you have so many beach toys that you leave some behind, you probably have too many beach toys. Yes. Or if you don't notice that you lost your shoe or your bottle cap, or, we need to buy less, consume less, be better consumers. And we need to, that whole leave no trace thing, we need to, look around us when we leave. And even if it's not your garbage, maybe pick it up anyway, kind of thing. Because, and if you see a garbage can that's overflowing at the beach, don't put your trash in it, because it's going to end up in the ocean and, being eaten by the birds and that sort of stuff. But my top pick out of all of that is to see the wonder.
That's wonderful. I like that. See the wonder, sorry. And then I said wonderful. It's been great having you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Sarah's art will be on display at the Media Center for the month of October. We're very fortunate to have her here. And thanks for joining us today. My name is Kate McMahon, and this is The Gallery.